Welcome to the National Association of Black Journalists Salute to Excellence award-winning and Emmy-nominated Postbeat with Greg Dunmore. And on this episode, I am elated, I am thrilled, I am excited because we have a man that I have followed his career for a very long time. And he's done an incredible job covering the God-blessed music that we like to call gospel. Welcome to the show, Roderick Dickerson, Noize of Joy.
Thank you so much, my brother. It's a pleasure being here. I can't believe I'm on this awesome platform. Postbeat is like one of my favorite shows that I watch religiously. Every Saturday morning, it's just amazing, the things that you're doing throughout the city, and I just count it a blessing to be a part of it.
Yeah, well, it's exciting that we're talking to you because, as I said before, it was a spiritual dynamic that brought us together. I saw you on Facebook, and I said, I got to know this guy because there was just something about reading about your background in television, and I'm thinking, why don't we know each other? Later on that same day at a K-E-M concert, I was to have met you, and I felt that it was divine guidance that brought us together. Just like this moment right now, it is an honor that Postbeat is chronicling something that I'm excited about, and we're going to talk about that just a little later, but I'm fascinated to know about your background. A tall guy, and I'm thinking that maybe you get what I get, basketball, but in your case, it was something else. Tell us when the vision came and the reality came that you would be doing what you're doing now in television.
Well, you know, what's amazing is I would have never, looking back, yes, I was an athlete. I ran track, I played basketball, played football. You know, I was born with a defect in my arm, but that never stopped me from desiring to be the best in basketball, football, baseball, and I was very, very good. Was able to make All-American, and I was like maybe the second fastest hurdler in Detroit at the time during the middle to late 70s. Went on to make All-American and the Olympic trials. Of course, in 1980, they boycotted. And so my desire started going into another direction, which was actually radio. I never had an idea I would be doing film and video. It wasn't until I came back home and someone had actually talked to me about Don Barton Cable. And I said, well, let me look at it. And I actually fell in love more with the visual aspect of television, film, more than radio. Of course, Electrifying Mojo was my hero, along with Nat Morris and Tiger Dan. Wanted to be them until I got back home.
Right now, I want to just turn back the wheel just a little bit when we talked about a defect. And I know that in God's greatness, that everything has a reason. And in your case, when you had a physical challenge, was there a moment that was an enlightening moment that said that this is not a setback, this is just something that will potentially motivate me? When did that moment, was there a moment that spoke to you?
Well, you know, I will say I grew up with two amazing parents. My father and my mother always encouraged me to be great.
And please say their names.
Roderick, well, my dad is Rogers B. Dickerson, also known as Bill.
Right.
A lot of people, if you knew my dad, you knew his nickname was Bill. Most people would think it was Roger or Rogers because that's his actual name, but Bill was his nickname. Right. But he was a baseball player, he was a boxer in the Army, and you know, he was very good at what he did too. And so I kind of wanted to be like him. I knew he was an athlete at one time in his life, but they always encouraged me. Actually, when I went off a track at Pershing High School, my coach, because of my arm, didn't really think I could compete. He thought that maybe I should try something else. But I actually taught myself how to run hurdles just so I could get on the team. Right. And from there, it was just natural. Actually, my father built my first pair of hurdles, and I used to be on the side of DeQuinder and Grigsdale. I'd have a crowd around me watching me go over these hurdles. So when my 12th grade year came, I was already set to be all city.
Well, now I'm hearing, wait, oh, okay, now. Oh, your mom is talking to me, and she said, baby, you didn't say my name, okay?
Right.
Tell us about your mom as well, because she's speaking to me. She said, what about my influence?
Well, I'm gonna tell you about my mother. And I was actually getting to that, just trying to cut my sentences kind of short. Don't want to be long-winded, but yes, my mother's Anna Lou Dickerson, who just got her wings, as they say, this year, and 93 years. She was amazing encouragement to me because there was nothing that my mother couldn't do in terms of taking care of the house, in terms of cooking, in terms of actually laying cement, building a brick stairs, if laying carpet, whatever my mother wanted to do. If there wasn't a man around, because my father was at Chrysler, he worked there for 45 years, so my mother wouldn't wait on my dad. Mm-hmm. By the time he get home, it's already done. She would repaint the living room, have me moving the chairs and everything. But she was a major encouragement to me because she told me, because I would come home crying because of the rejection, but she said, don't come home crying no more. You either got to show him that you real good, or you need to get out of the way. Because wow. I said, Ma, he act like I'm in the way. She said, are you in the way? I said, no, Ma, I'm real good. She said, well, you need to go out there and show him that you are real good.
You know, it's been said that rejection is God's protection. And the protection that you have through the force that comes from a family that is so dynamic. I'm connecting the dots. I'm understanding why you're who you are today. Now, the gospel world, as a young man, I know that you're probably a child of Motown and Get Down with James Brown. Right. But when did gospel music become your passion?
That is such a great question, and I've got a weird answer to it because I didn't grow up in church, really. We weren't really church-going folk. Of course, we went to church. You know, back then, everybody respected the ministry, pastors and preachers, not like today. But we didn't grow up going to church every Sunday. But as a young child, about 8 or 9 years old, for some reason, there was a picture on the wall of Jesus, and my uncle drew it. He pencil drew it. And I just became fascinated with that drawing. And one day I asked my mother, could I see that that drawing, because I want to draw it. She said, oh, you want to trace it? I said, no, I want to draw it. And I actually drew it exactly the way my uncle. Every hair, intricate hair, detailed. And then that gave me a somewhat of a curiosity about, okay, well, I think Jesus is connected to the church. And I started going to church on my own.
And you were?
I was 8 years old.
8 years old.
I started going to church on my own. Every Sunday. Every Sunday was a different church. You know, I went to Chapel Hill. I went to New Light. I went to Salvation Army. Every Sunday I went to a different church.
An evangelist at age 8.
I didn't know then that God was preparing me for ministry. I didn't even know that. You know, I would sit and read the Bible. But as far as the music is concerned, I grew up in a very musical home. My dad played guitar. He played the blues. My uncle played guitar. My mother's brother, Houston Davis, which we used to call him Ewell Davis. He was great with the guitar. He had a great band, and I ended up playing trumpet. Mm-hmm. But still, there was no gospel music. I grew up with James Brown, Parliament Funkadelic, you name it. I was in that. You know, I went to see George Clinton when they landed the mothership at the Olympia Stadium. I wasn't even thinking about gospel music.
But now, when did I know you said James Brown, but when did the Reverend James Cleveland, when did he touch your heart?
Well, I had an experience. I had an awakening when I was in California. I think I may have mentioned that I went to school in California, went to California State Bakersfield, where I ran track and made All-American. But I was a failure at everything. I didn't make the Olympic trials. I didn't get my degree. But God was using that failure to get me to draw closer to him. And I never forget Lionel Richie's Jesus is Love. That was really the first gospel song that I really listened intently, because at that time I was homeless. I was actually living in my car, and I would drive to a park in California to spend the night in my car. And I would play that song. It seemed like every night they played that song, Jesus is Love. And that really touched my heart. And it actually spoke to me in such a way where it compelled me to want to come back home, because I was such a failure out there in California. I know I had some nominal success. I was the California Coast Conference champion. One time I was runner-up at Cal State. Like I said, I did make All-American. I made the Olympic trials. but I didn't make the Olympic team. The goal was to go out there and get a gold medal. Didn't get that. Next goal was to get a degree. Didn't get that. And then I had a job that I was working at in the oil field. They noticed my arm, and so they let me go because they thought something might happen to me. So I just got tired, and I came home. And when I came home, that's really when I answered my call to ministry. And it wasn't before. When I came home, I didn't know Detroit was going through such a trying time.
And what years would
This
that
is the mid-'80s.
Mid-'80s.
You know, Chrysler, prior to me coming home, Chrysler was almost bankrupt, about to go under. And of course, that was the first time they had got bailed out by the federal government. And my dad was out of work. I didn't know it. I used to work for General Motors. I remember I called them and said, I'm coming back home. I want my job back. He said, ain't no jobs here no more. You need to stay out there in California and finish and getting your education. I said, well, I'm coming back home. Came back home. You know, my father, unfortunately, during this time, also, he was an alcoholic. And he was never abusive to my mother in terms of putting his hands on her. But when he got drunk, he had a way of saying things out of the way that he shouldn't say it. And I forgot about that. And then when I came home, I experienced this again. And I already had so much anger in me for being a failure in California that I lashed out against my father. I actually wanted to fight my father. But the Lord, I didn't know it was a God. God told me at that time, you cannot put your hands on your father. And so I immediately stopped and I collared him just to let him know that I was stronger than him. But I felt so bad about that I actually attempted suicide. Because I'm like, now I have really, you know, went to an all-time low.
What an amazing story that you were rejected, but you knew you were not a reject. You experienced disappointment, but you knew that your purpose was not to disappoint.
Right.
And you had thought about taking your own life, but you didn't want to disappoint God. And you said that I can't disappoint the entity that gave me the privilege of what is called life on this earthly journey.
Amen.
So you've had an amazing journey, and we've only talked about the first little portion of your life and media. I know you excelled in athletics, and you have excelled at just knowing that rejection, as I said before, is a protection that can make you stronger. But you've now made a mark in media. So when did the behind the camera become something that was part of your journey?
Wow. You know, like I said, radio was my first love. And when I came back home, I worked for WMUZ. And I was a producer, master producer. I produced a lot of the commercials for WMUZ, especially the ones that had a black or African-American client. I did almost all of them.
That's and that was AM or FM?
That was FM.
Right.
And that's when I got introduced to all of the greats, black gospel artists here in Detroit. You know, I got introduced to Vanessa Bell Armstrong, Thomas Whitfield, you know, all of the greats here, Vicki Winans, because they were all coming to the station, and I was producing their commercials.
And which I just found out, which I thought was amazing, that of all the female groups that have recorded in gospel, the highest selling gospel recording female group of all times would be what group?
Can't be nobody else but the Clock
Sisters. And they
Sisters.
were also, I know you've interviewed the Clock Sisters.
Mm-hmm, sure have. I've interviewed the Clock Sisters. Yeah, so I got kind of fed up with WMUZ in a sense. I don't like really saying that word fed up, but I got disenchanted. Right. Because the majority of the program was catered to a different audience that didn't look like me, didn't sound like me, wasn't the type of music that I would listen to. And if it wasn't for Marvin Winans being on the Gospel Connection at night, we wouldn't have no presence at all on WMUZ, even though WMUZ at that time had been in Detroit for over 45 years.
But what did you learn? Because you learned from failure, you have learned from disappointment. You said that you were disenchanted. So what did you learn from that state of not making the connection? What was the learning lesson that you took away from being disenchanted?
Well, the lesson that I really learned, which is don't complain about it, be about it. Because what happened was I didn't stop servicing Thomas Whitfield or Vicki Winans or Vanessa Bell Armstrong. I went and bought my own equipment. This is when I first decided to make an investment into what I was doing. So I bought a little 8-track. And because they wouldn't pay me for the commercials that I did. We had a rotation. And the first producer would get the first walk-in. The second producer would get the second walk-in and third. So if I'm third and someone comes in, but they're requesting me, I couldn't get paid because I wasn't in rotation.
Now, you're dating yourself. Well, I know what it is, but for the younger people,
right.
Tell them what an 8-track is, because there are people watching this thing. He said 8-track. What's an 8-track?
Right. Well, well, back in the day, it was an analog recorder, not digital like we have now.
Right.
It's an analog recorder where you put a cassette tape inside the recorder. You have
it's kind of bulky.
Kind of bulky. You had 8 different tracks. So I could record my voice on one track, I could record sound effects on another track, and I could layer music on another track, and then I could mix it to make it perfect. So I was doing that. So I actually told Thomas Whitfield, I gave him my business card. I had got some business cards made. I said, look, if you need me to do a commercial for you, take my card, give me a call. Don't call me here, because they won't allow me to do it.
Well, and because you know about the 8-track, that means that you are seasoned and experienced, and that is part of when I connect the dots of why you are so dynamic. You mentioned the Detroit names when we talk about Aretha, of course, Amazing Grace, and the Clark sisters, and Vicki Winans, and the Winans, and Commission, and Thomas Whitfield.
Oh, yeah.
The list goes on and on. We talk about having names that really no other city probably can claim. And I brag about Detroit as being the mecca of music, and certainly gospel is part of what has made Detroit an international mecca of music. Now, your Noize of Joy, and audience, if you don't know that show, and many people know it, but for those who don't know it, there's no gospel show in the history of Detroit television that is more outstanding than Noize of Joy, produced by Roderick Dickerson, who has done something that really does put you in the history books. Let us know, Noize of Joy, did God just wake you up one morning and say, Noize of Joy, or how did it happen?
Well, that's an amazing story too. Came in from the back door, had no idea that I was going to be doing Noize of Joy, gospel, anything for that matter. But like I said, I got my feet wet working at WMUZ. Got to know a lot of the gospel artists that are very famous here in Detroit. They appreciated my gift, my talent, and what I produced for them. But I was working, I had a contract with Detroit Edison. I was a supervisor over in the meter reading department. Got a magazine, a Video Makers magazine, and so I saw some camcorders in there. And me and the other supervisor, we decided, hey, let's get some camcorders and let's start filming weddings or something. So
now, what's a camcorder? What's that?
It's a camera and a recorder.
Okay.
Camcorder.
Oh, okay, got it. Remember, this for the audience that doesn't know it.
And so we got a couple of camcorders. By that weekend, we were filming weddings. But I knew there was something else I could be doing. And so I began to upgrade. So I said, well, this is a toy. I began to upgrade. I saw Channel 2 News, Channel 4 News with the cameras they had. I wanted one just like this. At that time, didn't have the money, but I had a very good friend named Tom Lego who stayed way out past Ann Arbor somewhere. He would rent me his equipment. I didn't own anything when I first started. And so I started chronicling and actually filming different events. B.B. Winans, C.C. Winans, they were at Dixon's Bible Bookstore. I went there and interviewed. Didn't have an idea that I was going to make a television show. And that was over 20 years ago. But a friend of mine was actually on Comcast, had a television show, and he said, man, why don't you put together a show? Because I got too much airtime and I can't afford all this airtime. Why don't you put together a show? And I thought about it, and I was thinking about joyful noise, and I said, oh, I know everybody uses that. It's in the Bible, but let's flip it. Let's call it Noize of Joy.
Wow.
So I was on channel 79 on Comcast, and basically all I was doing is giving a platform or filming independent artists who wanted to do a live performance video in front of a captive audience. And they could have their own video and take and do whatever they wanted to do.
And your show, and I know that you are well trained, you are seasoned, and you started out giving a platform for gospel artists that would not have had that platform had it not been for your vision, your talent, your ability to put them on television. And then the show morphed into more of a magazine format, Noize of Joy. And I was always impressed by the quality and the standard of excellence that you knew was part of your brand. And when you said you were renting, there's a song, God Bless the Child That's Got His Own. Mm-hmm. When did you become an owner?
Well, when my father passed, he did have insurance, life insurance. And so he left me and my brother and my mother a little bit of money. And I immediately invested into my own equipment because I would, like I said, I would have to drive like maybe 2 hours to go get this equipment that I was renting and bring it back to here, and then once I'm done, take it all the way back out there again. He stayed in Columbiaville, Michigan. I remember that. That's a long ways past Ann Arbor. I mentioned Ann Arbor, but he's way past Ann Arbor. So like I said, I had been praying to God. Of course, I wasn't looking forward to seeing my father pass. He died in his sleep. He had a heart attack. But he instilled a certain work ethic, a desire to, perfect your gift, your talent. He was an excellent person in machinery. They sent him back to school to learn how to work computers. When he was working for Chrysler, he worked 45 years for Chrysler, had perfect attendance and everything. So all of that is instilled in me. And so I was looking for the opportunity, and then, like I said, when he passed, it was $10,000 that I was able to get. I started buying, and back then the equipment was extremely expensive, but I bought it anyway. Big, giant Beta SP decks, camera about this tall over your shoulder. I had all of that stuff.
Now I noticed that Noize of Joy, you spell it Noize.
Correct.
And when I think of the Z, I think of zest, because there's an energy when you've got a zest, you've got an energy. And I know where it comes from already, because God certainly has been your guiding light, and you have done many things. A cameraman would be part of it, but you're now a man of God, and you're an ordained minister. When did you become called to the pulpit to speak the word of God before a congregation, because you are a minister? Okay. So let us know when that happened.
Well, it actually happened before I got into film and video. Like I said, I tried to take my life, and I went and got some sleeping pills, and I drank wine, and I was driving around wondering if it's going to take effect. And I stopped at a gas station on Greenfield and Schoolcraft. I'll never forget it. And that's when it started happening. I could feel myself dying. And by the grace of God, there was someone that knew me, recognized my car, and they called the ambulance because they thought I had been in an accident or something. They called, I was sent to the hospital, and they pumped my stomach, which is, it was a horrific event having that happen. But the whole time I was praying, God, just let me live. And the nurses there, they were checking in on me to see if I survived. It's a very horrific thing, for anyone that's thinking about suicide. Just don't do it. Don't do it at all.
So you had a calling.
Well, let me get to that right quick. So once I survived, I'm still in the hospital now. It's the next day. They had me sit before a psychiatrist, a gentleman from India. I don't remember his name, but he said, "Mr. Dickerson, why did you do this?" I said, "Let me tell you something. It'll never happen again." I said, "I'll never do this again." He said, "I believe you." And he let me go home. That day was Sunday. It was early Sunday morning. I went straight to church. I don't think I changed clothes. I probably smelled like the party animal that I was at that time, but when the pastor said the doors of the church are open, which was Odell Jones of Pleasant Grove Baptist Church, I actually got up and accepted my call to the ministry right then and there. I told him I had been called to the ministry, and he said, "I knew you was called. I just don't understand, why did it take you so long?" And from that point on, I've been preaching and teaching for over 30 years now, consistently.
in divine order and divine
Amen.
guidance and Noize of joy. Can I say it again, that in the history of Detroit television, there is no gospel show that has focused on music that has done what your show has done. It is really history making. And I challenge anybody to find a more outstanding show. And I'm talking about in the entire history. So we're talking about over a half century of television out of one of the major cities of arts and culture on the planet, Detroit, which now leads me to something that I am absolutely fascinated about and I'm thrilled about. Reverend Rod, filmmaker, when did that become something that was part of your journey, filmmaker?
Well, you know, the most fascinating thing about it is when I got into video, that's really what I wanted to do. I didn't want to be a video for hire, but that paid some bills, you know, kept food on the table. I wanted to be a film and video maker. I wanted to do documentaries, short films, and movies. And so this is a natural progression for me. We're starting out with a documentary, Noize of Joy. The movie is actually a docudrama, musical docudrama. From there, I do have a movie called Noize of Joy, which deals with a young lady named Joy, who's a phenomenal singer, but because she was almost abused as a child, she didn't want, from someone in the church, that she didn't want to have anything to do with gospel music or the church. And so that's the actual movie, and we're working on that right now. We finished the script. We're going to begin filming right after we premiere Noize of Joy, really the docudrama.
What just came to me that Joy the singer is going to have an awakening when she's watching the documentary. She's going to watch the documentary, Noize of Joy, the movie, and then it's going to morph into, oh wow, now this is going to be quite something. So as a filmmaker, is it more challenging than what you do on television to just make a film come to life? Is it more challenging?
I don't think so. And you know, with movies, you're basically mastering one scene at a time. Even though it may be an hour-long movie or 2-hour-long movie, every movie has scenes that link together to create this progressive story that culminates at the end to give you a lesson or an awakening or something. But all you do is master one scene at a time. You need to know, you need to be visually educated. You need to have some chutzpah when it comes to a good eye to know. You need to have imagination, and you need to be able to have the tools and the team to put that imagination on the screen. You know, you need to be able to tell that story visually as well as them hearing the dialogue. Sometimes there are scenes without any dialogue at all. But I think you can take your time with a movie. Now, obviously, you can take your time with a television show in a sense, but the television show, you know, you usually have a deadline, and it's every week if your show comes out every week. Although I do suggest and I recommend that most people, if you're doing television, do at least 4 episodes before you go on. So you already got something in the can.
Wow. Now, you know, there was a filmmaker, I'm going to tell you this little short story. There was a filmmaker by the name of Sue Mark. She was a producer of a show called Profiles in Black. She was a Jewish lady, and she was a friend of my family's. And I saw her at a party, and I told her a vision came to me that she was going to get an Academy Award. And do you know that a few years after that, and when I told her that, she says, really? You think I'm going to? I said, yeah, it came to me as a vision. And she did a movie called Young at Heart about finding love. It was a profile of her father and her to-be stepmother, and they got married. I think he was 90, she was in her 80s. They got married. It was called Young at Heart, but she won the Academy Award. So my vision is saying, Reverend Rod, that you are going to be receiving the coveted Academy Award. Wow. And you're going to receive it because of the documentary, then you're going to get another one because of the film. And I like to say on this show, Post Beat with Greg Dunmore, that we get it first. So I need for you to give us just a little snippet of your acceptance speech when they say, and the Academy Award goes to Roderick Dickerson.
First of all, I got to thank God. That's what everybody say, but I will be telling the truth. I have to thank God because he's the one that imparted me with this spiritual gift, with this anointing. And then second of all, I have to thank my mother, who has always just showed excellence when it comes to work. She's always been an encourager, pushing me, believing in me, trusting me. And my father, who instilled in me his professional work ethic. And I have to thank Post Beat, because you were the first. You're the first. You and Joel, you are amazing people. I love you both. But I want to say something that I didn't say earlier, if I can, about why Noize of Joy. I don't think I answered that question. When I accepted my call to the ministry, I was giving a couple of checks to go to Dixon's Bible bookstore to buy a Bible. I didn't even know John 3:16 when I accepted my call. I'm well versed in the Bible now in theology. I have a degree in Christian theology, but I didn't know anything at that time. I just knew God called me. So I went to Dixon's Bible bookstore, and as a side note, I noticed the music. I could hear the music, and there was a young man by the name of David Ivey who went on to sing with Radical for Christ Choir, which is Fred Hammond's group at the time. He knew every song that was playing in that place, and he turned me on to all of the independent gospel artists that had cassettes lined up on the wall that nobody really was paying attention to, but he was playing it. And I said, "Who is that?" And he would give them to me, and I would take them home, just to prepare myself for ministry. I would listen to these songs. And that's how, because those songs ministered to me. Those songs gave me the courage to connect with God and accept my calling and deliver a message. Those songs were amazing. Of course, Thomas Whitfield is not an independent gospel artist. He's an international gospel artist. And we need a word from the Lord. That was like one of my favorite songs, but there were quite a few. David Whitfield, who is now who was a nephew of Thomas Whitfield, David Whitfield, Darius Twyman, Dr. Tony Booker, all of these great independent artists that are here in Detroit, they are amazing. And I've listened to their songs. I've been ministered by their songs. And I just want to return the favor. I just want to give something to them that I know they need. They need the platform. They need the exposure. They need to be seen nationally. And they need to be seen in a professional manner. And that's the drive that gave me to put together, like you say, a magazine show. Because one of my favorite shows was Entertainment Tonight. And so I kind of wanted to pattern my show after Entertainment Tonight. Only gospel. Only good news music. Only good news. And so that's where the Noize of Joy actually comes from.
Wow, I'm impressed. And I'm also impressed because certainly when we talk about our pedigree, I had a friendly debate with Bobby Jones of the Bobby Jones Show that was one of the top gospel shows on BET. And we were debating what is the capital of gospel. Would it be Nashville, Chicago, or Detroit? So I'm on Team Detroit. Right. And he's debating about Nashville, and somebody else was debating about Chicago. But I said that, when we talk about, once again, Aretha, and even James Cleveland lived in Detroit for a while and was inspired by living in this city. And we talk about the Winans and the Clark sisters and Commission and Fred Hammond, and the list goes on. Charles Nix, it goes on and on and on and on. I'm curious to know, in your expert and your God-blessed, experienced self, what about Detroit makes it a city that is able to brag, and that is to bring recognition to accomplishments graciously concerning this God-blessed music called gospel? Why are we so without equal, in my opinion? In your opinion, what makes Detroit extraordinary in the world of gospel music?
Well, we all know, everyone can agree, when you talk about gospel music, you got to talk about the Winans. You got to talk about the Clark sisters. You got to talk about Vanessa Bell Armstrong. The list goes on and on. It's almost like you could shake a tree and all of the fruit that drops is amazing. Right. That's what gospel music has been to the world. There are plenty of gospel artists around the world, especially around the United States. But every time you look, if you look at the background singers, they're from Detroit. You look at the keyboard player, they're from Detroit. You look at the music director, they're from Detroit. You look at the R&B singers, they're from Detroit.
Dietrich Haddon.
Dietrich Haddon, right. We didn't even mention Dietrich. But I'm saying even Charlie Wilson has background singers that are from Detroit. And he's not the only one. This has been something that's been going on for years because Detroit is a mecca for gospel music. And of course, we've had a great history of gospel music. The only thing that we don't have, and that's where Noise of Joy comes in, is hopefully people will jump on this bandwagon, ride this train, and realize that, yes, we need to have a conference. There should be a major conference for gospel music in the city of Detroit.
And there should be also, Cleveland has the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and the R&B, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and they have their museum. We need a museum, yes, a complex. Like I just came back from New York, the Lincoln Center, and of course, D.C., you have the Kennedy Center. We need a center, prime property, that will be a international tourist draw, and your movie is going to be part of what will connect the dots. And if the political administration and the business people and the philanthropy that is important for a cultural center, we're going to have it. But I'm going to go back to Detroit being this mecca. I had talked to someone and they said they thought it might be the drinking water. But is there something distinctive to Detroit? Now, we know the greatness is here. Aretha, for example, she claims Detroit. She was born in Memphis, but certainly Detroit is the home that she always identified with. And she recorded Amazing Grace is still the biggest selling live recording in gospel music of anybody. Amazing Grace by Aretha Franklin, and she will always, God bless her heart, as she's in heaven above, smiling down on us. She always claimed Detroit as being her heart and her home. But what about Detroit? Is it something to, what's your theory about this city? Somebody said the drinking water, but what is your theory?
If you think about Detroit, urban Detroit, 90% of urban Detroit, our forefathers, come from down south.
Okay.
The soul music, not just soul music, country music comes from down south.
Rock and roll.
Rock and roll, all of that comes from down south. And so when they migrated to Detroit because of the jobs, that was still in them. Because like I said, my father played the blues. That was a natural occurrence for an uncle, a cousin, a father to go in the back room, go in the closet, and pull out a guitar and just start singing. That was a natural occurrence, not only in my house, but many houses across this city. So we've always had this musical talent, and we are a working man's town. So we already knew about work ethic. That's in us. That's in us too. That's a part of who we are. That's a part of our culture. That's a part of our makeup. And so when you put talent and workmanship together, it's going to come out in such a fascinating way, because all of these people that we talk about as far as the founders of Detroit gospel music, they all read music. They could write and read music. They were real musicians. They had to play.
This is before AI.
That's way before AI. But yeah, they're very talented. You'd be shocked to realize how many songs were written and produced and composed by these Detroit producers and artists, because they had not only the gift, they had the talent, but they also had the education. Back then, you went to school to learn how to read and write.
So they had, AI, and I'm always leery of, and I know we're in the age of AI, but I'm always leery of anything that is artificial. And artificial biscuit, I don't eat that.
Me either.
And artificial intelligence. So it's really GI. They had God's intelligence, or GBI, God's blessed intelligence. And you really opened up something in my thought pattern, that you had Southerners, black folk coming to Detroit, and when you get a job and you're getting paid, your endorphins, they just become bright and you become very happy. And when you're happy and you're getting paid and you know the importance of a good work ethic and you put that into the equation, you're able to create classical And really, gospel is classic music.
That's right. And we wanted a good time. We wanted to be happy. You mentioned that.
Shout
yeah, makes you shout, sway, and all that. I mean, you think about it. We've come all the way from Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi. Most of them, I should say, may have had one car and maybe 2-3 families in that one car, or 2 or 3 brothers and sisters and uncles and cousins in that one car. They got an apartment, all of them in that one apartment.
Wow.
All of them. And then as one person got a job, they would turn the other person on, get them a job, and then they would move out, get their own place. And this was an ongoing occurrence with all of our forefathers that came from down south. And so whenever pleasure was introduced, and it was always introduced by music, somebody could play a guitar. Positive pleasure.
God bless pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And I will say this, even though I didn't grow up listening to gospel music, there was always Aretha Franklin. She always had great gospel music. You know, there was always at least an inspirational, good gospel-like sound on the radio.
It was just
on regular radio. It was organic. Stevie Wonder made songs that you would think was gospel.
Yes.
Marvin Gaye made a song that sounds gospel, right? What's going on? I mean, that's gospel. That's really gospel.
And you know, the first song that Aretha sings in Amazing Grace was written by Marvin Gaye.
Wow.
In that documentary that they did, the first song that she does is a song that was written by Marvin Gaye. So I'm so excited to talk to you, Reverend Roderick Dickerson, because your journey, it is ongoing. On this earthly journey, you have blessed us, and you continue with this. It's a continuous cycle of achievement in your case. So I'm just glad that Post-Beat with Greg Dunmore, we are honored and blessed to sit down and talk to you. As I said before, the Academy Award, you can say that we said it first. We're among the first. And in media, certainly, we probably will be the first to have claimed that coveted award for you. So as we say, not goodbye, but until we talk again, and the sweet noise of joy, would you leave us with whatever God is telling you to tell this audience from your heart, soul, and your intellect? Would you leave us with some words of empowerment that only can come from Reverend Roderick Dickerson, Noize of Joy?
Well, I do want to say, and I'm talking to the audience right now, and I'm talking to you and to your audience, you have got to see this documentary. It will make you proud. Number one, it's going to touch you in a way because God speaks through music, gospel music. And when we say gospel music, gospel is the good news that Jesus Christ died. He was buried in a borrowed tomb, and he rose again with all power, inexhaustible grace, inexhaustible mercy. And that is the foundation for great gospel music. You know, today we have a lot of hit songs, but we need to have songs that touch the heart. And I was touched. I tried to attempted to take my life, but it was gospel music, along with the Bible, along with prayer. It was gospel music that kind of got me out of that. And that was over 30 years ago. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for God, his word, and his music through Detroit's independent and nationally known gospel artists. You got to see Noize of Joy, the documentary. You will be touched by it. You will be proud to know that you are a part of the fabric because we're all one family in God.
May God continue to bless you, Roderick, so you can bless us with your multi-talented, amazing self. Thank you so much for joining us.
God bless.
God bless you.